Let's just jump right in. We're about to unpack one of the strangest, most unbelievable origin stories in all of ecology. It's a story about how a simple love for literature ended up causing a full-blown biological disaster across an entire continent. And it all started with this one single idea. Not some big scientific project, not an agricultural plan, just a cultural, almost romantic goal. And that one thought, right there, is what set in motion a change to North America's ecosystem that could never be undone. So, how in the world did a tribute to the most famous writer of all time end up unleashing one of North America's most destructive invasive species? Well, before we get to the invasion itself, you've got to understand the starling back in its original home. Across Europe and Asia, it was just another bird. Nothing special. Its numbers were kept in check by predators like hawks and foxes, and by local diseases. It was a normal, stable piece of a very old ecological puzzle. Then, this happened. In 1890, this group of Shakespeare fans, they called themselves the American Acclimatization Society, decided to make their dream a reality. They actually imported and released about 60 European starlings right into Central Park. For them, it was just a beautiful act of literary homage. That's it. So why didn't these 60 birds just, disappear? How does a small, well-intentioned gesture like that spiral into a massive continental crisis? Well, as it turns out, they had landed in the absolute perfect place at the perfect time. You could say North America was basically gift-wrapped for the starlings. There were hardly any native birds that did exactly what they did, so there was no real competition. At the same time, humans were building cities and farms everywhere, creating these perfect artificial habitats. Plus, there were way fewer natural predators to worry about. And to top it all off, the starlings were just tougher. They were aggressive and could easily bully local birds out of the best nesting spots. The stage was set for a total takeover. And with those perfect conditions in place, what happened next wasn't a slow spread. It was an explosion. The speed and scale of the starlings' conquest of North America is just mind-blowing. Just look at how fast this happened. Within a few decades, they went from one single spot in New York City to literally everywhere. By the 1920s, they hit the Mississippi River. By the 40s, they'd somehow crossed the massive Rocky Mountains. And by the 1950s, just 60 years after that first release, they were on the Pacific coast. They had conquered an entire continent. So what was their secret weapon? It was simple. They were incredibly adaptable. While our native birds, like bluebirds and woodpeckers, were still looking for natural hollows and trees to build their nests, the starlings were moving right in with us. They saw a home in any crack in a building, any vent, any telephone pole. They didn't just survive in our world, they thrived on it, pushing our native species right out of the picture. And this number? This says it all. From those original 60 birds set loose in a park, the population just ballooned. Today, scientists estimate there are around 200 million European starlings in North America. I mean, from the starlings' point of view, that is an unbelievable success story. With numbers like that, it was only a matter of time before our perception of the starling changed. They went from being a quirky literary experiment to a widespread nuisance, and eventually to a very serious danger. And the costs started piling up big time. In farming, their huge flocks cause over $800 million in damage to crops and animal feed every single year. In cities, their massive roosts create deafening noise and serious health risks from all their corrosive droppings. And for aviation, their tendency to swarm near airports created a new, deadly threat. That abstract threat became a terrifying reality on October 4th, 1960. A passenger plane taking off from Boston's airport flew straight into a massive flock of starlings. The birds were instantly sucked into the engines, causing immediate, catastrophic failure. 62 people lost their lives in the crash. And that one event changed everything. Suddenly, the starling wasn't just an expensive pest anymore. It was now officially considered a threat to national security. The stakes were suddenly so much higher. So, facing this growing crisis, we basically declared war. For decades, we threw everything we had at trying to control or even eradicate the starling population. But it was a war we were destined to lose. You can see how the strategy changed as each attempt failed. First, we just tried culling them, trapping, poisoning, you name it. But they just reproduced too fast. Then we tried more sophisticated biological controls, but the starlings were just too smart and adaptable. Finally, we had to admit defeat. The goal was no longer to get rid of them. It shifted to just managing them, to trying to coexist. So after more than a century of this, where are we now? What is the real legacy of this strange, Shakespeare-inspired invasion? And here is the biggest irony in this whole story. Get this. While the starling is an unprotected pest here in North America, something we're always trying to control, back in its native Europe, its population is actually in decline. Changes in farming over there have made its home less friendly, so the very same bird is a species of conservation concern in one place and a permanent pest in another. And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? This whole massive ecological problem didn't start because of greed or carelessness or anything like that. It started because a group of people really, really loved Shakespeare. It's just this powerful living proof that sometimes our best intentions can have disastrous and permanent consequences. In the end, the starling is so much more than just a bird. It's a living piece of history. And it forces us to ask a really tough question about our place in the natural world. It's an invader, sure, but it's also a mirror, reflecting just how profoundly and permanently our human stories can reshape the planet itself.